luxurious Christmas party turned into pure horror when a pregnant woman was pushed from a fifth-floor balcony by the man who had sworn to protect her. Everyone believed it was over. Everyone believed she was gone. But fate had other plans. She didn't hit the pavement. She landed on the one car that could save her, and that car belonged to the ex-millionaire who still loved her. What followed was a storm of truth, power, and consequences that would shatter lives and expose every lie Victor Hale tried to hide. And believe me, you won't believe what happens when the truth finally walks through the penthouse door. Welcome to Voices of Auntie Rose. I share new life stories here every day, and I'd truly appreciate it if you hit subscribe and liked this video. Now, let's return to the story. Stay with me until the end. Snow fell slowly through the cold December air, glittering beneath the golden lights of the Hale Sky residence. The 5-story luxury building towered over the Chicago skyline like a glass cathedral, filled with the sound of a live Christmas jazz quartet and the gentle clinking of champagne flutes. Guests in velvet gowns and tailored tuxedos drifted from room to room, while servers carried silver trays decorated with pine sprigs and crystal ornaments. Everything looked perfect. Everything looked expensive. Everything looked carefully curated to reflect the image of success projected by Victor Hale. Near the balcony doors stood Elena Brooks, one hand resting protectively on her 6-month pregnant belly. The noise inside the penthouse pressed against her temples, growing louder, heavier, until it drowned out her thoughts. For a moment, all she wanted was air, real air that didn't smell like expensive cologne or artificial cinnamon diffusers. She pushed open the balcony door and stepped outside. The balcony wrapped around the building, framed by sleek glass railings that revealed the city glittering far below. Snowflakes drifted onto her eyelashes, melting into cold droplets that strangely soothed her nerves. She tightened the shawl around her shoulders and inhaled deeply. Her heart rate slowed for the first time all evening. Behind her, the music softened. The laughter faded. She could finally hear herself think. Then came heavy footsteps. She recognized the rhythm instantly. Victor always walked as if he owned every floor he stepped on. Elena. His voice sliced through the cold air. What are you doing out here? People are asking for you. She turned slowly, keeping her expression neutral. I just needed a moment, she said carefully. It's too loud inside. Victor stepped onto the balcony, letting the door close behind him. His cheeks were flushed from alcohol, and the veins in his neck stood out sharply. Even beneath his custom-tailored suit, Elena could feel the tension radiating from him. He had been drinking too fast. It was a pattern she knew well. But tonight felt different, more volatile, more dangerous. You're embarrassing me, he said quietly. It's Christmas. People expect to see the Hale family united. Not like this. Not with you disappearing. I'm not hiding, Elena replied softly. I just needed air. Victor let out a small, sharp laugh. It wasn't amusement. It was warning. Air, he repeated. That's always your excuse when you can't stand being around people. Her stomach tightened. Victor, I'm pregnant, she said. My feet hurt. I'm exhausted. I'm doing the best I can. You always have an excuse. He stepped closer. She smelled aged whiskey on his breath. Do you know how many investors are in that room? He asked. How many reporters? Do you know what they think when they see my wife running off like this? What they think doesn't matter to me, Elena whispered. It matters to me. His voice rose, then dropped again under tight control. You are my wife. You're supposed to support my image, not destroy it. Her back brushed against the cold glass railing. She hadn't even realized she was retreating. Victor loomed over her now, blocking the warm glow of the penthouse behind him. settled on his shoulders, melting into the dark fabric of his coat. "Victor," she said, her voice trembling, "you're scaring me." He scoffed. "Scaring you? You always exaggerate. All you had to do was smile, hold my arm, and act like you belong here. Instead, you disappear. You look miserable. People notice. They talk." He leaned closer. "They think something is wrong with our marriage while I'm trying to close the Windsor deal." Elena's pulse raced. "I'm not trying to ruin anything. You ruin everything without even trying." His eyes dropped to her belly. "Just look at you." Her throat tightened. "Please," she said. "Let me go back inside. We can talk when you calm down." The words froze him. "Calm down," he repeated softly. "You think I'm not calm?" She swallowed hard. "For the baby," she whispered. "I'm begging you." Something shifted in his expression. The tension sharpened. "You always make me the villain," he said quietly. "Maybe you should stop acting like the victim." Before she could respond, Victor grabbed her forearm. His fingers dug into her skin. "Victor, stop," she gasped, trying to pull away. "You're hurting me." He didn't stop. He stepped forward, forcing her closer to the railing. "Let go of me." Then it happened. One violent shove, a sudden shift of weight. Elena's heels slipped on the thin layer of snow. Her body tilted backward. Her arms flew up, grasping for something, anything. For one frozen second, time slowed. She saw the golden lights behind the glass. She saw the city reflected in the railing. She saw Victor's face, caught between rage and sudden realization. Then gravity took over. Elena fell. Her scream tore through the icy night as she plunged from the 5th floor, snow swirling around her like shattered stars. Above her, Victor stood at the railing, staring down at the disaster he had just caused. The scream hadn't fully faded when the music inside the penthouse collapsed into silence. The jazz quartet stopped mid-note. A trumpet remained suspended in the air. Guests turned, confused at first, then terrified. "Oh my God!" Someone screamed. She fell. Champagne glasses slipped from trembling fingers. Crystals shattered across marble floors. Conversations died instantly. The balcony door stood open, letting in a blast of freezing air and snow. Closest to the entrance stood Sabrina Cole, clutching her sequined purse. Her lips parted in a performance of shock, but behind her eyes flickered something else, something darker. "Call 911, a man shouted. Guests rushed onto the balcony, their breath fogging the air as they leaned over the railing. Some recoiled immediately. Others stared down in disbelief. "She's alive," someone whispered. "I heard something hit a car." Phones rose instinctively. Screens glowed. Fingers shook. Inside, chaos spread. Victor re-entered the penthouse, snow clinging to his shoulders. His face wavered between panic and calculation as he ran a hand through his hair. "She slipped," he said quickly, "on the snow." His voice was too firm, too rehearsed. "Elena's been unstable lately," he continued. "You've all seen how stressed she's been." A few guests nodded, desperate for an explanation. Others weren't convinced. Sabrina stepped forward, placing a delicate hand on Victor's arm. "This is terrible," she said softly. "She was very emotional tonight. Maybe she just needed rest." Her performance drew attention. Cameras turned, whispers spread. Victor gently withdrew his arm. "Everyone stay inside," he ordered. "The police will be here soon." But suspicion had already taken root. Near the door, a young woman whispered to her friend. "I saw her reach out. That didn't look like a slip." Outside, sirens wailed in the distance, and everyone understood. The night was only just beginning. The sirens hadn't reached the building yet when Victor Hale moved deeper into the penthouse, away from the balcony. as if distance could erase what he had just done. The room was still reeling. Guests stood frozen in small clusters, whispering in broken sentences, their faces pale beneath the warm glow of the Christmas lights. Even the jazz musicians remained motionless beside their instruments, unsure whether to pack up or stay where they were. Victor dragged a hand across his face, smoothing his expression into something calmer, something rehearsed, something that could pass for grief if observed from a distance. He had worn masks his entire life. Tonight was no different. "Please," he said, raising his voice just enough to cut through the murmurs. "Everyone needs to stay calm. It was an accident. Elena has been under a lot of pressure lately. She was overwhelmed." A few people looked at him with wide eyes. Some nodded automatically, more out of fear than belief. Others whispered among themselves, trying to reconcile what they had seen with the explanation he offered. A woman in a red satin dress stepped forward hesitantly. "Victor," she said, her voice trembling. She didn't look overwhelmed. She looked terrified. Victor forced a sympathetic smile. "It's Christmas," he replied. "Hormones, exhaustion, stress, the baby. You know how these things can be." The woman frowned but said nothing more. She stepped back, doubt etched clearly across her face. Victor exhaled slowly, one down, many more to convince. He moved toward a group of older investors gathered near the towering Christmas tree. Their glasses trembled in their hands as the twinkling lights reflected off the crystal. "I'm deeply sorry you had to witness this," Victor said in a low, controlled voice. "Elena hasn't been well for months. Anxiety, emotional instability. The pregnancy has been difficult." One of the men frowned. "Difficult how?" Victor hesitated just long enough for his lie to sound thoughtful. "Fainting spells, panic attacks. She even told me earlier tonight that she felt dizzy. I should have kept a closer eye on her." The men exchanged uneasy glances. None of them fully believed him. None of them dared challenge him. Victor was still the man who signed contracts, the man who funded projects, the man whose favor could elevate or destroy careers. Sabrina Cole appeared beside him, resting a gentle hand on his arm. "Victor," she whispered softly, loud enough for those nearby to hear. "I know how devastated you are. You tried so hard tonight. You really did." Her voice trembled with perfectly calculated compassion. Her eyes shimmered as if on the verge of tears. It was a performance, and it worked. Several guests nodded sympathetically, believing they were witnessing a woman supporting a grieving husband, not two accomplices trying to control a narrative. Victor stiffened slightly. He didn't want to appear too close to Sabrina, but her presence reinforced the story he needed everyone to believe. "We need to wait for the police," he said quietly, and remain calm. "Of course," she replied with a composed nod. "Whatever you need." Across the room, the young woman who had been near the balcony wiped tears from her cheeks. Her friend held her shoulders. "I swear," she whispered. She reached out. She didn't jump. She didn't slip. Her friend glanced nervously around the room. "Don't say that too loudly. Victor is listening." "I don't care," the young woman whispered fiercely. "Something was wrong. I saw her face." Victor heard her. Despite the distance, her words pierced him like a blade. Panic tightened his jaw. He needed control. He needed silence. He needed the story shaped before anyone else shaped it for him. He approached them with a carefully composed expression. "Are you two all right?" he asked gently. The young woman stiffened. I saw her reach out. Victor nodded slowly, as if comforting a frightened child. Of course she reached out. Anyone would if they slipped. The snow made the balcony dangerous. I asked her to come inside. "That's not what it looked like," she replied, her voice voice shaking but steady. Victor leaned closer, lowering his voice. "You're in shock. We all are. No one is thinking clearly right now." He placed a hand on her shoulder, reassuring on the surface, firm enough underneath to remind her of his power. She froze. Her friend pulled her back gently. Victor straightened and turned away, signaling discreetly to his head of security. "Check the cameras," he murmured. "Delete everything from the balcony and the hallway." The guard hesitated. "Sir, the police will want that footage." Victor's eyes hardened. "Before they arrive, we can't let this turn into a scandal." The guard swallowed and nodded reluctantly before hurrying toward the security office. Near the fireplace, voices murmured anxiously. "He's deleting the cameras. We should say something." "Are you insane? He could ruin any of us." Fear spread through the room like smoke. Everyone understood what Victor was doing. No one dared stop him, not yet. Sabrina watched from across the room. For the first time that night, her confidence wavered. Not for Elena, not for the baby, for herself. She could see the desperation in Victor's movements, the cracks in his control. "Victor," she said, approaching him again, "people are starting to question your story. Maybe we should slow down." He shot her a glare. "Let me handle it." She pressed her lips together. "I'm just saying, if she survived—" "Don't say that," Victor snapped. "She's not alive." The certainty drained from his face almost instantly. The sirens grew louder. Red and blue lights flickered faintly against the glass walls. The penthouse became a stage, and everyone waited for the curtain to rise. Victor inhaled deeply and put his mask back on. He had rewritten the story. Now everyone needed to believe it. But outside, the truth was already taking shape, and it was stronger than his lies. Sabrina had always loved attention. She lived for the way eyes followed her when she entered a room, for the whispers, for the envy that bloomed behind polite smiles. Tonight, despite the chaos, she felt that familiar thrill. The tragedy had shaken the penthouse, but it had also created opportunity. She smoothed her silver dress and breathed slowly, preparing herself like an actress about to step onto the stage. Snow drifted in through the open balcony door, cooling the room. Guests clustered together, anxious and uncertain. Sabrina walked toward the center of the penthouse. "Is everyone all right?" she asked softly. "This has been a terrible night. Victor is heartbroken." Her words carried. A man cleared his throat. "Yes. Very shocking. Elena wasn't well," Sabrina continued gently. "Victor tried so hard to help her. Seeds were planted. Small seeds. Dangerous seeds. He feels responsible," she added, "even though it wasn't his fault." She paused, then smiled faintly. "He's not alone." Eyebrows lifted. Whispers spread. She opened her purse and subtly tilted her phone so the screen caught the light. A photo appeared. Her and Victor. Close. Intimate. She didn't show it outright. She didn't need to. The woman beside her noticed. "You and Victor are—" she whispered. "It's not official," Sabrina replied modestly. "Not yet. But there were plans," she added quietly. "He wanted to wait until after the holidays." She sighed softly. Elena had been struggling mentally. He didn't want to overwhelm her. The lie tasted sweet. Across the room, Victor argued with security. Sabrina continued circulating, touching every conversation with the same implication. She and Victor were stable. Elena was not. A couple approached her cautiously. "Is it true?" the woman asked. "People are whispering." Sabrina lowered her gaze. "Life is complicated," she said softly. "Sometimes love doesn't arrive when it should." The room listened, but beneath her confidence, fear crept in, because the police were close. and Elena might still be alive. The siren screamed louder. A cold dread swept the penthouse. Victor clapped his hands once, sharply. "Listen to me," he said. "Everyone stay inside. The police will have questions." "Questions about what?" someone asked. "The truth," Victor replied. Elena slipped. There was snow. Suspicion rippled. "If anyone contradicts this story," Victor added, his voice darkening, "you will be held accountable." The elevator chimed. Silence fell. The doors slid open. The police had arrived. The elevator doors slid fully open, and the room seemed to shrink. 2 uniformed police officers stepped into the penthouse, followed by a paramedic and the building manager. Red and blue light from the street below flashed through the glass walls, washing over the marble floors and frozen faces. The Christmas decorations now looked grotesque. The towering tree glittered uselessly. Champagne fountains stood untouched. Laughter had been replaced by dread. Victor Hale inhaled deeply and stepped forward, straightening his jacket as if welcoming important guests. "Officers," he said calmly, "thank you for coming. It was a terrible accident. I can explain everything." The lead officer, a tall woman with sharp eyes and a controlled presence, raised her hand. "We'll speak with you shortly," she said. "First, we need to confirm information about the victim. She is your wife?" Victor nodded, his face carefully sculpted into grief. "Yes, Elena Brooks. She slipped on the balcony." Before he could continue, the paramedic stepped forward, clipboard in hand. "Sir," he said evenly, "your wife is alive." The room exploded. Gasps ripped through the air. A champagne glass slipped from someone's hand and shattered on the marble floor. Sabrina Cole's knees buckled as she grabbed the edge of a table to steady herself. Victor felt the ground tilt beneath him. Alive. The word echoed violently in his mind. "Alive," he whispered. "Are you sure?" The paramedic nodded. She landed on the hood of a vehicle. The impact was severe, but not fatal. Someone called 911 immediately. A man near the window murmured, "That car saved her." Another asked, "Whose car was it?" The paramedic continued, unaware of the tension gripping the room. She regained consciousness briefly. She was able to speak. The officer watched Victor closely. She said someone pushed her. Silence slammed down like a wall. Guests backed away from Victor instinctively, as if he were suddenly dangerous to stand near. "That's not true," Victor snapped. She was confused. She slipped. The officer took a step closer. "You said she slipped. We haven't finished collecting statements yet." Several guests looked ready to speak. Sabrina moved quickly, placing a gentle hand on Victor's arm. "Elena was emotional," she said softly. "She's been under a lot of stress. Victor did everything he could to help her. A woman near the balcony couldn't hold back. Stop lying," she said sharply. "You were bragging earlier that you were seeing him." The room froze. Sabrina's face drained of color. "That's not true," she said quickly. "I never said that." "Yes, you did," another guest replied. "You showed us photos. You said there were plans." The officer turned to Sabrina. "Ma'am, we'll speak with you shortly." Sabrina stepped back, trembling. Victor raised his voice, panic slipping through his control. "This is getting out of hand. None of this helps Elena." But no one was listening anymore. The officer addressed the room. "Anyone who witnessed the fall or heard anything relevant will be interviewed privately." Victor shouted, "Half of these people are drunk." The officer's gaze hardened. "You are attempting to influence witnesses." The building manager stepped forward, holding up his phone. "Officer, the security system saved a backup copy of the exterior and lobby footage. Someone tried to delete the balcony video, but it wasn't successful." Victor froze, every muscle locked. "Who ordered the deletion?" the officer asked. Victor said nothing. Silence spread like frost. The paramedic cleared his throat. "She's being transported to St. Augustine Medical Center." She asked for someone named Adrian. The room erupted again. "Who's Adrian?" "Adrian Cross," the paramedic clarified. "Former tech billionaire." Victor's face went pale. The building manager added quietly, "The car she fell on is registered to him." Whispers spread like wildfire. The officer raised her hand for silence. "No one is leaving this penthouse." Victor felt everything slipping. His lies, his power, his control. Somewhere in the city, Elena was alive and speaking. The ambulance raced through the snowy streets, sirens cutting through the night. Inside, Elena lay strapped to the gurney, bruised and trembling, but breathing. Monitors beeped steadily beside her. "Stay with us, Elena," a paramedic said gently. "Your baby's heartbeat is strong." The fall replayed in her mind. The shove, the cold air, the scream. "He pushed me," she whispered. The paramedic leaned closer. "You're safe now." Suddenly, the ambulance doors opened. Cold air rushed in. A familiar face appeared. "Alina." Adrian Cross stepped inside, snow clinging to his coat, fear etched across his face. "I'm here," he said, gripping her hand. She swallowed hard. "He tried to kill us," she whispered. Adrian's jaw clenched. "He won't get away with it." Back at the penthouse, tension snapped. The elevator chimed again. This time, Adrian Cross stepped out. The room went silent. Victor turned slowly, his eyes widening. "What are you doing here?" he demanded. Adrian ignored him, walking straight toward the officers. "She asked for me," Adrian said calmly. Victor exploded. "She's confused." Adrian turned, eyes cold. "She told paramedics you pushed her." Guests gasped. Witnesses stepped forward. "I saw him grab her." She reached out. The officer approached Victor. "Mr. Hale, you are being detained for questioning." Victor staggered back. "This isn't over," he muttered. But it was. The handcuffs clicked shut. The sound of the handcuffs echoed louder than the music ever had. Victor Hale stood frozen as the police officer tightened the metal around his wrists. His confident posture collapsed, shoulders slumping under the weight of what he could no longer deny. "This is a misunderstanding," Victor muttered. "She slipped." No one responded. Guests stepped back, creating a wide corridor of silence as Victor was escorted toward the elevator. Faces that once admired him now looked away, filled with disappointment, fear, and quiet judgment. "I always knew something was wrong with him," someone whispered. "He's finished," another voice murmured. Sabrina Cole stood near the bar, trembling so violently that her bracelet clinked against her glass. Just hours earlier, she had imagined a future wrapped in luxury and power. Now she watched that future dissolve in real time. As the elevator doors closed on Victor, the penthouse erupted. Police officers separated witnesses into groups. Phones vibrated nonstop. Messages were sent to editors, lawyers, and friends. The scandal was already racing beyond the walls of the Hale Sky residence. Downstairs, Victor was placed in the back of a patrol car. His breath fogged the window as he stared at the snow-covered street. "Suspect in custody," an officer radioed. "Transporting for interrogation." Suspect. The word echoed in Victor's mind. Entrepreneur, visionary, millionaire, never suspect, never criminal, never monster. "I didn't push her," he whispered to himself. "She slipped." But the image haunted him. Elena's outstretched hand, the terror in her eyes, the moment gravity took her away. In the driver's mirror, an officer glanced back at him. "If the footage shows what witnesses say it shows," the officer said evenly, "you're in serious trouble." Trial. That word terrified terrified Victor more than anything else. Trial meant cameras. Trial meant testimony. Trial meant Elena would speak. And Elena was alive. Morning light filtered through the windows of St. Augustine Medical Center, soft and golden, replacing the harsh blue glow of the night. Elena Brooks lay propped against pillows, wrapped in warm blankets. Her body ached in ways she never imagined possible. Bruises darkened her arms. Her ribs throbbed with every breath. But she was alive, and so was her baby. The steady rhythm of the heartbeat monitor filled the room, grounding her in the reality she had survived. Outside her room, officers stood guard. Social workers quietly discussed protective measures. Nurses moved gently, treating her with reverence instead of urgency. At the window stood Adrian Cross. He looked exhausted, but resolute. "You're stronger than anyone I know," he said quietly. Elena managed a small smile. "They said we were lucky." Adrian shook his head. "You were brave." A nurse entered, checking her vitals. "Everything looks good," she said warmly. "Both of you are stable." Relief washed over Elena. When the nurse left, Adrian pulled a chair closer. "I'm not going anywhere," he said. "Not unless you ask me to." Tears filled her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered, "for believing me, for coming." Adrian reached for her hand. "You were never alone," he said softly. "You just forgot." Later that morning, a police officer entered the room. "Miss Brooks," she said gently, "Victor Hale has been denied bail. He's being charged with attempted murder." Elena exhaled a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. "We'll also be issuing a restraining order," the officer continued, "though it's mostly symbolic at this point." "Thank you," Elena said quietly. The officer smiled. "What happened to you was not your fault." When the door closed, Elena placed a hand on her belly, feeling movement beneath her palm. "I want a quiet life," she whispered, "for him." Adrian nodded. "You'll have it," he promised. "I'll make sure of it." News spread quickly. By afternoon, Victor Hale's arrest dominated headlines. Tech tycoon accused of attempted murder, pregnant wife, survives fifth-floor false security footage, reveals shocking truth. Sabrina Cole was questioned extensively. Her messages, photos, and statements unraveled under scrutiny. Her carefully constructed lies collapsed alongside Victor's empire. Sponsors withdrew, contracts dissolved, board members resigned. The Penthouse was sealed. The image Victor had built for years shattered in less than 24 hours. Days later, Elena was discharged. Adrian pushed her wheelchair through the hospital lobby as reporters shouted questions behind police barriers. Cameras flashed, voices echoed. Elena didn't look back. She refused to let their noise steal her peace. Outside, snow fell softly, covering the city in quiet renewal. As Adrian helped her into the car, she paused. "This feels like a beginning," she said. He smiled gently. "It is." Elena took a deep breath, feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Freedom. "I'm really glad you stayed with me until the end of this story. If it touched you, please show your support by liking this video and subscribing to Voices of Auntie Rose. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. I love reading